Hello, I have a little bit of problem in the background, so please bear with me. The joy of having a radio show, and I set it up wrong. So I don't know if you can hear the music in the background. I'm trying to deal with that. Um, so one of the things I wanted to get into today, thank you for coming back, Darcy. We're I'm having a difficulty with my camera has died last night, actually, just before I went on with Usama. So that's one problem. And hopefully we can get past that. We have Lloyd DeJong joining us and Dr. Kuffarphobia with us today. And we're going to tackle Shariah. We're going to pick on Reliance of the Traveler. And one of the joys with attacking Reliance of the Traveler is this is the English version of Shariah. I love the fact that they actually put it in English and aren't hiding it in Arabic. I think they had to do that in many different languages because the truth is, if you want people to obey you, you have to tell them the rules. So how do you do that? You have to actually publish. And I'm amazed by what I have found when I go through this. And I sit there and to be honest, I sit there and I laugh when I look at some of this stuff. There's real good reasons for that. And I look at this and I say I'm laughing. People might not get that. I'll explain why in a little bit. There are some things in Sharia that simply just make you laugh. At least they do to me. Maybe not everybody. And let me just get back where I want to be here. I like your setup, Lloyd. So I'm gonna definitely use this. This is nice. So I'm gonna pull that over and share it. This is really nice. Lloyd DeJong was kind enough to let me share out. I'll be sharing what he's put together for us. For those of you who don't know Lloyd is one of the leading experts in the world on Sharia. And it's a great honor to have you joining us. So thank you for joining us. And we have Dr. Kuffarphobia, my partner in crime for going through the Quran. It was we killed a lot of brain cells.
Yeah, but now I feel lost.
Oh my gosh.
Like, what do I do? 10 months of reading the Quran and tearing it apart, and now it's over. Hey, Lloyd. I don't know if he remembers me from Skype.
Yes, finally we meet up. Welcome.
Yeah,
Thanks for having me.
Good to see you.
What kills me with Reliance of the Traveler, when I was just going through it and I was reading it, there was, let's see if I can find, I had this, when you go through and you're looking at it, the part that got me, I'm reading through, just getting ready for the show, and it's in here. I saw it in here too. The introduction. I started looking at this, and I had a little bit of a laugh when I'm reading this. Yes, they talk about the four Sunni schools of Islamic law: Hanafi, Maliki, Shafi'i, Hanbali, and their legal conclusions. They pretty much agree. What I find humorous altogether with this is, while they agree, the truth is I don't think there's very much that Shiites and Sunnis disagree on. Do you agree with that? That, to me, it's against everything I was originally taught, which, I sit there and I laugh. Why were we taught that they hate each other as much as they do? And in truth, they hate each other to an extent, but they don't have a great distaste for each other.
No, the major disagreement is whether anyone could become caliph, or whether the family of Muhammad should continue the lineage and remain the caliphs in charge.
And to me, to you and me, that's not something you would normally argue about who's in charge. We see it as the concept of superfluous. I guess it's not important. And why would we say it's not important? Because there are less important things, and to them, that means a whole lot. But I feel sorry that they think that is everything. Um, what I like about this introduction, it's not something that you highlighted, which I think is kind of interesting, but I think that it's right down here. Let's see. Next section. And it said some points about the book. So we have Ahmed ibn Naqib al-Misri, and here's the part that I got. And we have Umar Barakat. They mention now Misri lives from 769 to which is about, he died about 769, which is actually 1368 in our years. That's 769 al-Hijra, correct? And then Barakat, he wrote the text commentary. And you know what I found interesting here was their definition of reliance of the traveler and tools of the worshiper. I started laughing because you and I, Lloyd, we've had these conversations. There's no way you can find prayer, how to do the prayers, unless you go to Shariah.
Correct.
So this is your toolbox for Muslims. It's not the Quran.
Well, you were just mentioning to me that you had a scholar, university's lecturer, saying that the reliance is completely false and irrelevant. If you can scroll to if you can go to page 2, please. Let's go up to page 2. We'll type in the box page 2.
Oh, well, okay, so you're okay.
Yeah, right there. Because they want to, so just show the contents. So they want to dismiss literally everything. Just scroll down, please. Yeah. Just scroll up a little bit. Keep going. Just fill the page with.
Oh, that's the next thing I wanted to do. Is talk
keep
about
going, please.
Yeah, these certifications are extremely important.
Yeah, just ignore that for a moment. Just go up, just from A. Just scroll up so that A is on the top of the screen, please. You can stop about there. So you said that Muslims, as we know, and will try to dismiss this book as irrelevant. Now notice it covers fasting, zakat, funeral prayer, purification, pilgrimage, the Hajj, inheritance, marriage, divorce. Now they will say the reliance is irrelevant. Now they would have to prove that it's wrong about marriage, wrong about divorce, wrong about justice, wrong about trade, wrong about the Hajj, wrong about fasting, wrong about zakat, wrong about the funeral prayer. They would have to demonstrate it's wrong on all of these points, because if it's correct on all of those points, then it's correct on all the other points that they don't like. And where in the Sharia, where in the Quran do you find the 5 daily prayers? Where do you even find the Shahada? So this book is incredibly accurate. It's incredibly detailed, and this is why they don't like it. It's too embarrassing.
There was a local imam who is he was a professor at Nazareth College of Rochester, and he was going out, and I brought this book with me to confront him one time, and he's saying, I've never heard of that book. Here's the problem. See, one of these certificates in here it's from the International Institute of Islamic Law. Guess what he works for? Triple IT, and he's trying to tell us he doesn't know. Like, yeah, okay, hey, but your organization got a stamp of approval in there. How can you stand there and lie to us? That's what I said. You're lying, and I know you're upset that we know we can read Sharia in English, but we are, And I read to them from there, and he just got mad, and I really didn't care, but. One of the reasons I thought we were talking about somebody tried to discredit, and that's the point. I thought what I like here is or if you want to talk more about the background, I'll defer to you first. We lost your sound. I think you turned your sound off.
Sorry. Yeah, you can lead, and then I can just add any filler detail.
So what I wanted to do is really look at these certifications. And the reason I think the certifications are important, all they're really saying is it's accurate. It's an exact translation in English. Now, there's real big reasons why these this is what it's under the documents section and the certificates. Take a look at who these are from. Sheikh Abd al-Wakil Darubi. I'm not probably pronouncing that correctly, but you know what it looks at. Look at this. This is the Imam of the Mosque of the Darwish Pasha, and this is Damascus, Syria. This came out he signed this 1988. When you think about it, it's not that long ago. This is a high mucky muck in Islam. And that's my just generalization to put it that way. This is his writing in Arabic. That was the translation. Right? They're saying that this book is accurate. Right? Again, we have, as this guy says, I have read all the chapters of this book, whose basic text is Umda al-Salik, makes notes on some of the matters, reviewed it with his brothers, first of which is, and again, he's making great comments about its integrity, its accuracy of this translation. And this is the Mufti of the Jordanian Armed Forces. And guess what? It's signed in February of 89. Okay. And that is his writing in Arabic and the translation. All right. So we're getting to this next one here. This is, to me, this was the most important piece. For those of you who are in the USA or Canada or in Europe, this is the organization that created the term Islamophobia. The IIIT, they call themselves, International Institute of Islamic Law. Now, believe it or not, this was the first group of the Muslim Brotherhood that I encountered. So and I saw this in here and I started laughing because here was the reason I needed to read this, because they had put this out. And this book, the first guy I encountered is the first guy who got me he brought in IIIT into Nazareth College. He took 500 grand from them into the college. And you know what? They bought the Islamic chair at Nazareth College. So in fact, that they have their stamp of approval on this, to me, that says we need to be using this every day. Jabir al-Awani. Now, I believe Jabir al-Awani is either dead or he just stepped down. That's been a while now. There's been, I think, 2 replacements since him. And, this, again, if you haven't seen them, you need to really pay attention, because this group is one of the leading Muslim Brotherhood representatives around the world. Do not trust them. They are the ones who will get on the screen, on the TV. They're always alongside CARE. So if you think they're not, pay attention. And then there's this certificate of Al-Azhar, Islamic Research Academy. Now, Al-Azhar, this is the big stamp of approval, certification. Here it is. We certify the above-mentioned translation corresponds to the Arabic original and conforms to the practice and faith of the Orthodox Sunni community. There is no objection to printing it and circulating it. How important is it that this guy gave that stamp?
For the same reason that when Barack Obama went to the Middle East, he gave his talk at Al-Azhar, because it is the most respected school of Islamic theology and jurisprudence in the world.
And this is where we sit here, and if you have, this is why I say it's worth spending the $40 to $50 to buy this book. It is worth its weight. It is a little heavy. I'm not going to deny that. It's just a little bit thick. It's a great read. It will blow your mind. What we're going to go through with this is just the beginning of what we're going to do. You do want to pay attention to the abbreviations here because they actually play great importance with actual understanding of what's in here. But I wanted to get into this, the knowledge of good and bad. And you're going to sit here and laugh a little bit. At least I laugh a little bit about this. The knowledge of good and bad. And let me see if I can grow this just a hair. Or maybe I'll just...
You can type a percentage into the box. You can actually type in a number.
Okay.
Like you can go 301, 302 if you wanted. You know,
Okay, let's try that. Okay, let's try it. Okay. So let me explain why I thought just starting with this was important. And to me, I think this is pretty simple. This Abd al-Wahhab Khalif says there is no disagreement among the scholars of the Muslims that the source of legal rulings of all the acts of those who are morally responsible is Allah most glorious. So doesn't matter. Again, catch here is for the acts of those who are morally responsible. So the clue here is there must be some people that are not morally responsible. And that kind of made me think, okay, there is no disagreement, again, of the Muslims that's the source of legal rulings for all the acts of those who are morally responsible. That tells us there's a separate group, that there are those who are not morally responsible.
Well,
is that how you read this?
In those terms, so basically when someone turns roughly 12, that means they now are technically an adult and they're responsible for their actions. They have cognizance of whether they're doing right or wrong according to the rules of the Shariah. So this means that, let's say, a minor 5-year-old is not morally responsible. They cannot be blamed for something they do. So this is an echo of the concept, obviously, within the Talmud, because it's modeled after the Talmud. Before the conspiracy theorists and Jew haters jump on that, the two are vastly different. This is not to say that this is a direct copy of the Talmud, because the two are vastly different, but of course people will continue pushing the slander.
That is exactly what it is. Thank you for pointing that out. I was, again, the one thing I think, again, that you'll find after having read the Quran and then trying this, there's always details missing in Islamic stories. They don't mention the age. Notice they don't mention those important things.
Well, tell me, the wives of Muhammad, are their names mentioned in the Quran?
No.
So
Muhammad's name is only mentioned 4 times.
Yeah. Now, if the Quran is all you need, then why aren't the wives' names in there? And how come Muslims all know the names if the Quran is the only document you need?
And this just is, and they talk about one of the pillars is prayer. Why isn't there anything in the Quran that tells you how to pray?
Correct.
Even the Shahada is not in there.
Correct. Or perform a marriage. There's nothing in there.
So, and then it talks about, okay, so you got the Shahada, you got the prayer, you've got all these things that are pillars, and none of the details are in the Quran. So the Quran can't be extremely important since it's missing so much.
Don't forget, the Quran is abrogated.
Yes.
The Hadith are abrogated. Now, the abrogation, obviously, a newer verse cancels an older verse. Few people are aware that a newer Hadith cancels an older Quran verse, and a newer Quran verse cancels an older Hadith. So these two cancel each other out. Now, of course, you will read, if you go through the Sharia, that the Sharia is final and not abrogated and cannot be abrogated. So the Quran is abrogated, the Hadiths are abrogated. So Muslims will throw verses and Hadiths at you that are abrogated. The Quran is abrogated, the Hadith are abrogated. The Sharia is the only thing that cannot be abrogated. So the Sharia is the final interpretation. It is the final source. It is the final product of Islam.
And this is where this is why I think this is extremely important, doing this again, use the critical thinking cap that you've got, guys. Think about it. This question, A1.2, and put on your thinking caps. Please do comment after I read this, because I know I have my own thoughts. It says, the question arises, is it possible for the mind alone, unaided by Allah's messengers and revealed scriptures, to know rulings, such that someone not reached by a prophet's invitation would be able through his own reason to know Allah's singular rule, concerning his actions? Or is this impossible? Now, in Christianity, we have something that is discussed called the categorical imperative. Does God communicate to everyone what the concept of morals are? And Christians would argue, yes, there's such a thing as good and evil. The question I have with this here is, before I even go down lower, which will give an answer, which I think is humorous after thinking about this. If Allah doesn't communicate except through a prophet or his scriptures, so it appears that Allah is incapable of communicating with the average human being. Is that truthful according to the Quran and the Shariah from what you've read? Love to hear everybody's thoughts on that.
Well, don't forget, Allah is not able to come to earth. Allah cannot enter his own creation, and Allah is unable to have a son or, to send to earth. So how does Allah communicate? That's why he has to send supposedly Jibril, an angel.
Kuffar, do you have any thoughts on this?
Yeah, my question would be, if that's true, then there's a problem with the hadith, because the hadith says that Allah comes to the lowest heavens on the third of the night to ask the Muslims if they need any supplication from him. Wouldn't that be coming into your creation? I mean, he did create the seven heavens.
But he doesn't descend to the earth. Because if you go a little further, even in this section, it says that all matter is accursed, which is a Gnostic view. Yeah. And Allah is pure matter, and Allah cannot enter into the cursed matter.
And that's where I think my biggest issue here is if there's no concept of morality and Allah can't communicate that, how do we have a concept today, an average human, have a concept of good versus evil? And we went on my show, we discussed the problem of evil recently, and we examined, how do you know there's such a thing as good? How do you know there's such a thing as evil? We went through that. How does everybody do that? How can you decide something's good or bad or evil? And we looked at how atheists come up with a concept. But the issue is, can you decide what's good and evil? And here's the other thing I catch from this. If Allah can't communicate what's good or evil, is he also proposing that in everything that follows, that he's going to propose something against what is normally considered good and evil? And that's what I think is revealed in this question. His concept of good and evil will contradict everybody else's concept of good and evil. So this is where oh, you got it highlighted, yeah. A1.3, it has me laughing. Position, Dr. Kuffar, do you want to read that? Okay, yes, I could. A1.3, the position of the Ash'aris, the followers of Abu Hassan Ash'ari, is that the mind is unable to know the rule of Allah about the acts of those morally responsible, except by means of his messenger and inspired books. So they came out with that is the answer. For minds, this is the part, again, this is starting to make me laugh. So, for minds are in obvious disagreement about acts. Some minds find certain acts good, others find them bad. However, one person can be of two minds about one and the same action. So you see someone walking grandma across the street. Somebody could actually say that's good, and someone could say it's evil.
Yeah, it
And
sounds
this,
that way.
well, here's the other problem with that. If a person can have the same thought, can hold both that it is good and evil, that violates the law of non-contradiction, which Allah doesn't understand. So it's not a surprise. Allah doesn't understand logic. I get that. But it's something to say that it's actually in there. I kind of, yeah. Caprice often wins out over the intellect, and considering something good or bad has to come based on mere whim. So it cannot be said that an act which the mind deems good is therefore good in the eyes of Allah. What is it? I mean, this is just mind numbing that they would say these things. It's
Perhaps I can add to that.
yes.
So it says that, okay, so it cannot be said that an act which the mind deems good is therefore good in the eyes of Allah. So, in other words, they're telling you your conscience could lie to you. You could believe that diddling a 3-year-old is bad, but your conscience is lying to you because you need to be told by the books of Allah, by His Messenger, what is right and what is wrong, and disobey your conscience. Later on, you will see they speak of the concept of the nafs. You're basically your spiritual self. And remember, they speak of jihad, this greater jihad, lesser jihad.
Yes.
Now, the lesser jihad, of course, is to go out and kill people or be killed for Allah. The greater jihad is to overcome your inhibitions in your conscience, mostly because they require you to do things that are going to go against your moral conscience, like quite bluntly, infant pedophilia, quite bluntly, beating your wife, quite bluntly, being called upon to murder people to spread Islam, jihad. So therefore, you need to be able to submit your conscience to the will of the Shariah, because the Shariah is going to tell you what is good and what is evil. Your conscience is wrong. So this is what they're preparing you for. They're basically creating someone that would be willingly become a psychopath on behalf of Islam. You are going to deny your own conscience.
And that, I mean, that's what it comes back to, denying your own conscience. So let's play on the pedophile. So the pedophile believes, or you're being told, let's say by a pedophile, that raping a child is okay. And if you haven't believed that, Muhammad marries a 6-year-old girl, touches her inappropriately, and then violates her when she's 9 years old. That's not even in solar years, that's in lunar years. And you start thinking about, okay, in your minds, your conscience would say this is evil, it's sick, it's gross, something seriously wrong with a person. But this little God, Allah, is saying, well, it matters what I think, not what you think. And you have to be a slave to his mentality. And that's the best. I guess it's actually what you just said. It's a slavish mentality. You have to accept everything that Allah says, and everything you say has to be wrong.
Well, that's what they say, that whatever the mind feels to be bad is thus bad in the eyes of Allah. So understand, now you've got, I just did the show with Al-Fadi, which just released a day ago, on pedophilia within Islam, legal pedophilia, where it is legal to quote unquote marry a girl. There's no lower age limit, and you are allowed to have your way with them. And this includes slave girls as well. Muslims are defending it. Muslims are denying the Reliance, of course, denying the Sharia, and denying it exists. But this is because they've been told this is good. And then on top of that, even within the Reliance later, it shows that if a Muslim brings dishonor on Islam, they are guilty of blasphemy, and this is the death penalty. Also, if a Muslim thinks bad of Islam, this is dishonor, this is blasphemy. Again, that's the death penalty. They cannot speak ill of Islam, and also they must not believe ill despite the evidence. They cannot think ill of Islam or Muhammad, no matter what is even within their own scriptures. So this leads to cognitive dissonance. They are told that they need to listen to what is in the Sharia, not their conscience. Again, this creates, no, the proper term is not schizophrenia, but you're creating a mind that splits in two because it sees the reality and it has to deny the reality.
That's that cognitive dissonance. I mean, I think there's probably a point where soldiers are told to do things, and that's where I think some of the PTSD concept comes from, where they're told to do things they feel that they can't accept, but they still do them sometimes. But these are not soldiers. This mentality requires a slavish mentality where you have to and must obey, which is what we said, under pain of death, versus anything else. That's kind of how I guess that's how I'm seeing it. Let me finish here. It's performance called for, its doer rewarded by Allah, or whatever the mind feels is less bad in the eyes of Allah. It's non-performance called for, and its doer punished by Allah. And here we go. The basic premise of this school of thought is that the good of the acts of those morally responsible is what the lawgiver, this is the part that kills me. I know this is a comment, Allah or his messenger. Isn't that an act of shirk right there?
They're both synonymous. They're one and the same. So yes, they are partners. So this is synonymous with Allah or his
But it's
messenger.
not partners. It says they're the same, doesn't it?
Yeah, basically they have the same authority. So Muhammad has Allah's authority here. In fact, if Allah didn't say it, but Muhammad said it, then it came from Allah. So Muhammad is technically usurping the authority of Allah here.
That's
He is the lawgiver.
exactly how I saw that. I was like, wait a minute. I'll tell people something. It's just when you read this stuff and you catch it, Muhammad has now declared himself greater or equivalent to Allah.
Well, don't forget, according to the Sirah, when you read the biographies of Muhammad, they love to call them biographies. They're the Gospels. Muhammad is made from the substance of Allah. Don't forget, Muhammad is literally made from the substance of Allah. Muhammad is made from the Tawhid, from the light of Allah. He was molded and formed and shaped. And Muhammad was with Allah at the time of creation. Muhammad was with Allah when he created the stars and the heavens and the earth. And the earth was made for Muhammad.
Wow.
Yeah, Muhammad's light adorns the throne of Allah, the Arsh, as they call it. So the Arsh of Allah, Allah's arse, is adorned with the light of Muhammad. In fact, Muhammad's light is what lights up the heavens and lights up the throne room of Allah.
And this is, again, if the lawgiver for Islam is, I mean, again, we're already into the law of non-contradiction. They'll tell you down the road, if you say there's a partner or something equal with Allah, then you're committing an act of shirk. But here we are in the beginning of their law, A1.4, and they have just told us that Allah and his messenger are equal.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
It's incredibly humorous. And, again, they don't know. They don't have a concept of logic, so they can't tell that what they've done is just destroy everything else down the road.
Well, don't forget that their philosophical basis is, okay, we'd have to go back to a scholar called Al-Farabi. Now, when they decided to, obviously, once they'd conquered a great deal of territory, they needed a system of politics to manage this territory. And they were intent on creating a religious theocracy. A scholar called Al-Farabi read Plato's Republic, and they developed the concept of the caliphate on the basis of Plato's perfect republic. But they received Plato through the lens of the Neoplatonists. Now, along with that, you'll find that their argumentation is based on the principles of the 6th century BC pagan Greeks called the Sophists. So the entire method of argumentation is not based on logos, it's based on will. They are effectively arguing like the Greek sophists. That's their process. If you read through the Shariah, you'll understand they don't have non-contradictory logic. They are relativists.
And for those of you who are not familiar with the way public schools teach today, that is, they teach a lot of relativism, which violates the belief structures of those who believe in the Judeo-Christian God, and
Well,
it's
yeah, the
important that
public
people understand that.
yeah, the public school system in America was created by a man called John Dewey, who was a materialist atheist, and also he believed that atheism and secular humanism was the religion of mankind, that everyone was born a secular humanist, a common secular atheist. He believed this was the universal and common religion. He believed that secular humanism was a religion, and it was his purpose to indoctrinate, to make sure that all children were raised to be secular humanists specifically. And again, the secular humanism, even though they believe, well, they try to claim it's scientific, and it started in the late 1920s, specifically as a religion, a replacement of Christianity. Again, they trace themselves philosophically to 5th century BC Greece, again to Protagoras and the Sophists. Again, their philosophical basis is sophistry, like Islam.
And for those of you unaware, please go visit Lloyd DeJong's site for YouTube, and you will see he's got a number of videos up on the topic of secular humanism, atheism, and this is, if you haven't watched those, I would say go watch the entire series. I don't think you're done yet, are you?
No, I'm just getting started.
Because I've watched the 2, and I'm just kind of, I have to go back and watch the second one again because I will listen to them and it'll make me think. Then I'll have to play it again. So that's a good, when you put something out that makes you have to watch it twice, that says something to me. So, and I consider myself pretty scholarly, but I have to go back and think. That's a good thing. All right, so let's keep going here. I'll skip this Blesseman thing. So the lawgiver. Let's go back. The basic premise of this school of thought is that the good of the acts of those morally responsible is what the lawgiver has indicated is good by permitting it or asking it be done. Think about that. I mean, he permits something to be good is the same pretty much as asking it to be done. And the bad is what the lawgiver has indicated is bad, and by asking it not to be done. So we have halal, which is permissible, and we have haram, which is bad or not permitted, or we would say the other term in Germany they would use verboten. Yeah, go ahead.
Well, in terms of permitting, remember someone comes to Muhammad, says, who will deal with I think Ashraf ibn Ka'b for me? And then someone says, can I tell a lie? Then I can get close to him and I can kill him. Muhammad permitted that, right? Therefore, when you go into other books on the Shariah, political assassination is legal. It is considered a rightful and holy tool because Muhammad permitted that. He allowed someone to do that. So that is whatever was permitted, or where Muhammad did not actively speak against it, that is considered permission.
And we have examples of that in the series. We have examples of that with the Muslim Brotherhood and their actions in Egypt especially, and pretty much all over the world at present. And those are kind of things that you just continually see. We've actually had members of the Muslim Brotherhood engage in attempted acts of assassination in the United States, and some of them have gone to jail for that. So again, if Allah indicates it's permitted, and this is the setup to contradicting what the humans, which everybody else believes is good and evil, and that's goes on. This good is not what reason considers good. Again, this setup, nor the bad what reason considers bad. So this is where I get into the slavish mentality. You don't have a choice. It's what Allah says is good. It's not what you think. It's what Allah says is bad. Again, it's not what you think.
Go to the next sentence that clarifies that.
The measure of good and bad, according to this school of thought, is the sacred law, not reason.
Not reason.
Now, that's where I was going to skip to now. Do you know what W3 is on? Because I was reading that. Let's just see. I think it's about 12. try about 13. About
No, it's going to be way in the back. It's going to be like.
So this is I was, if for those who don't know, the W section is the notes section, and I went back, and the reason I went back there because you want to read law when they refer
you want to
to
be in like in the PDF, go to page 859.
Thank you.
Actually. So just scroll down 1 or 2 pages. You might go 1 page below that. Just
We're in A3.
yeah, you're very near. It's just 1 or 2 pages after that. There you go. Yeah. It's going to be down there. Just scroll down.
There we go. All right. Let me pull this across a little bit so everybody can see. All right. Now, again, this is when you read law, you try to put it all together. So this is a note from Ghazali on this topic. The way that the medicines of acts of worship. Now, medicines of acts of worship. Think about that. So we're talking about potions. Okay. Way they work, their limits and amounts being specified and determined by the prophets cannot be comprehended by the apparatus of intellectuals' intelligence. Now, Lloyd, I want to ask you, did we read anything about medicine when they put this? So I started to laugh when I started to read this. What are they talking about with medicines or potions, whatever, with worship? And this has to do with reason?
I guess the assumption is that you are ill and you need to take this medicine because this will make you well, make you better, make you a better human. So that could be metaphorical, but I mean, Ghazali, just so everyone knows, Ghazali is known as the Hujjat al-Islam. Now, Muhammad obviously was supposed to be the greatest example of Islam, but Muhammad didn't expound on a lot of details because you just have the Quran and, of course, the Hadith. But the Sharia, being the final understanding, was created by 4 scholars known as the Mujtahid Mutlaq, the absolute scholars, the perfect scholars. But there was one scholar who then had to tie everything together of these 4 schools and create a single set of ideas to prove that Islam is true. This is Ghazali. He's the number 1 scholar after Muhammad. He's the highest scholar in Islam after Muhammad himself. He's called the Proof of Islam, the Hujjat.
Wow. So take your medicine and swallow this, whether you like it or not. Let's keep. Okay. Rather, it is necessary to follow the examples of the prophets, which Allah never gets in correct chronological order, to whom these properties are perceived through prophetic light, not the apparatus of the mind. So even if the Quran doesn't tell you, we're going to have some problems here. Because if the Quran tells you something and this tells you something else, this would be negated this would be abrogated by the Quran. So
yeah, but on that point with the light, don't forget Muhammad is made from the light. Muhammad's body is literally made from the light of Allah. He's a piece of Allah. And then after Muhammad was made and placed on a pedestal, right, for all the hosts of heaven, all the angels and all the human souls as yet unborn before creation, they worshipped Muhammad for 100,000 years. So first Muhammad worshipped Allah for 70,000 years. And then the souls of all of us unborn worshipped Muhammad for 100,000 years. So Muhammad was worshipped for longer than Muhammad worshipped Allah, right? Then Allah took pieces from the light of Muhammad, and when the prophets were sent to earth, a piece of Muhammad's light was placed inside them. So the light of the prophets, the wisdom of the prophets, is literally the light of Muhammad. They all are a reflection of a small candle of the light of Muhammad.
Again, so when they speak another of the light, act of equating Muhammad with as a partner, again, exposing that Allah has a partner over and over again. Love it.
Mm-hmm.
If a philosopher denies the possibility of such properties in the numbers of the rakas, and to me, this is going to get humorous when it'll go down the road. If a philosopher denies the possibility of such properties in the numbers of the rakas of the prayer, stoning the pillars at Mina, Mina, the numbers of Hajj integrals or any of the acts of worship in sacred law, he will not find a difference in principle between such properties in those of the various medicines, for example, or the stars. He says, if I have tested something of both astronomy and medicine and found them to be correct, so that my heart has accepted them, I no longer think them far-fetched or reject them. While I have not tried this, so how can I know it exists or investigate it? Should I acknowledge its possibility? This continues. I would answer, this is Ghazali. I think I'm saying this. Is that the exact pronunciation?
Ghazali.
Ghazali.
Ghazal. I mean, technically
Ghazal,
Ghazal, but
okay.
Ghazali.
I would answer, that's him saying that, but you do not always continue your acceptance to what you have personally tried. Not always, that's kind of, you do not always continue your acceptance to what you have. I can almost agree with it. You don't always agree with something you try. Sometimes you say you did it wrong and you do it better next time. Okay. Rather, you accept information from others who have and you follow them. There are some people who you consider authorities and you trust. I'll grant that. That makes some sense. Do you try everything before you do it? Sometimes you take a chance. Let us imagine a man who reaches physical and mental maturity without ever experiencing a disease, but who then falls ill. He has a concerned father with skill in medicine whose claim to medical knowledge he has heard as long as he can remember. And his father now compounds some medicine and says, this is the appropriate medicine appropriate for your disease and will cure it. How much will the patient's intellect demand? Even if the medicine is bitter and tastes unpleasant, will he take it? Or will he call the doctor a liar, saying, I don't see the suitability of this medicine for effecting a cure since I've never tried it? You would doubtless consider him a fool, and just so do the knowledgeable who possess spiritual insight.
Notice, though, they're going to tell you, hey, this is going to taste terrible. You're not going to want to do it. It's going to be horrible, but it's good for you. This is not a message saying we have something of beauty and love that is going to inspire you. It is going to be something that you would find compelling. This is like, yeah, we're going to have to ask you to check your brain at the door and your morals under the carpet. And you're going to have to do things that you find repulsive. Understand the preparation here. They're telling them to get ready for things that they're going to find perhaps even repulsive. Do you see the kind of the potential for that here, at least?
And that right there explains the beginning of this section where he talks about they start talking about medicine, and it's exactly as you were just saying. This is a bitter medicine. Yeah, and they even use the word bitter. It's a bitter pill, and Shariah is a bitter pill that contradicts your brain. It contradicts your concepts of good and evil. And that should be a warning light for everybody who understands.
Just go down a couple of slides to get on one page down to the bottom to 863, because they're talking about why they're trying to convince you for why. And keep going.
We're going back.
Go down. Keep going down. Yeah, keep going down. I mean, so they're saying the prophet knows what's good for you. We know what's good for you. That last little bit over there, they speak of. Okay, so one gains absolute certainty. Go up a little bit, yeah. That he reached the sphere which lies above and beyond the mind. The sphere which reaches above and beyond the mind. That is a Gnostic concept, right? And that the eye which opens onto the unseen, that none but the elect know of, matters unfathomable to intellect, was opened for him. Now notice they spoke of the intellect, things that you can't know through the intellect, right? So this is entirely a Gnostic concept because your mind can't conceive it, but we go beyond the intellect. We go into the realm of the gnosis. We go outside of the rational mind. We enter into the void of the Gnostic realm where they commune with the monad, right? And they bring back knowledge. And when they speak of the elect, that is a very specific term. They mean it in a very specific way. So these are very Gnostic terms. That sphere These are ideas they got from the Neoplatonists.
And,
Right.
and this is one of the things that I found extremely important, because here we are looking at Sharia, and you would think they would be telling us about Islam, but actually it's bringing us back into the Greek structure of belief, which then, to me, this says, well, maybe, this kind of says, okay, maybe it really was Petra where Islam started, because that's closer to Greece. Maybe it was. I mean, all these questions. I mean, you start
there's
to
another.
ask.
Yemen had even more connection to Greece.
Yes.
So earlier than that. But the elect, the idea of the elect, the chosen ones, that's a very specific term. Even, I mean, without wanting to get conspiratorial and conspiracy theory like here, but the elect would be a term that a secret society would use. Like this would be associated with groups like the Illuminati, right? So, and don't forget well, that's a different story entirely. So let's skip that for the moment. But the elect, they are the elect, the chosen ones. They are the ones chosen by Allah, with the gifted, with the higher knowledge, the gnosis. So bear that in mind. That's a very specific term that they use. They know that they speak of where they can disassociate their minds from reality and go into communion with Allah. They can go through the veil and enter into the throne room of Allah and come back with the secret knowledge. That's the whole vibe here that they're hinting at.
And this is the stuff that made me want to go through this, because it's not just, you and I have talked a little bit about Gnosticism and its impact on Islam. But the point is that we're just starting. This is the notations they're putting in about the first few pieces of Sharia, and they're telling everybody that it is directly tied. Even if you have a simple knowledge of Gnosticism, you can
No,
see
it admits it openly. I'm just curious, Dr. Kuffar, for a third person's opinion. I mean, the things I've said, do they make sense to you? Do they seem very difficult to comprehend? Do they seem logical? I mean, I'd like to get your opinion as a neutral third party here.
Well, I'd like to apologize first because I had to step out and take my dog out. But I've watched your show. I've watched what you've done, and I would say I agree with you 100%. I mean, probably not the answer that you wanted, but
No. That's actually it's actually well, good to know that there's no disagreement. But I mean, it doesn't sound like I'm making it up or I'm just throwing things out, like randomly connecting.
No. You've always you're a very well sourced individual. So anything that you say, I'm assured that it's not coming out of your, it's not coming out of your opinion or something. You have the sources, you've studied the sources, and I kind of like that about you, or anybody that's dealing with any topic. Like for instance, when I deal with Muslims, I provide my sources, which is usually their sources. So whenever somebody can provide the Muslim sources, now they can argue and complain all they want, but we didn't write it. We're just presenting it to them because let's face it, we know more about Islam and their sources than I would say the majority of Muslims, which is kind of sad.
This is the part that kills me, and it's exactly what you were saying. Love to hear your thoughts on this too, Rad. But I mean, just to give as basic as you can get about the concept of Gnosticism. Basically, it's secret knowledge is out there; it exists, and that can get you to as simple as I can put it, is higher planes of heaven or existence, and this secret knowledge. That's why you have things like the elect.
It's their myth of the fall, and this allows you to return your soul into communion with the monad, to really oversimplify the story, and it allows you to perfect yourself in the realm of matter.
It's kind of shocking, Red. I'd love to hear your thoughts. What are your thoughts so far? Oops, he jumped out. All right. This is again, reason why I started with this is because I wanted to get into here. The fact that you have to go in, if you read this as it should be, and that's what I'm getting at. If you're reading the Quran, I mean the Sharia as you should, you come back to these notes to find out what are they really saying. Let me see if I can go all the way home and come down. It's a little easier. I think it's.
But notice they speak of it opens onto the unseen. So their minds open onto the unseen, and your mind is trapped in the intellect. Your mind is trapped in your body. They step outside into the realm of the unknown, right? They step into the realm outside of this physical matter. So therefore, they will tell you, because you don't have the level of development. You don't have this occult knowledge. So that's why in the beginning they say that you can't know this except through the scholars. Your mind is not capable of comprehending it. That's how they open up. Your mind cannot comprehend it. We are not trapped in this realm. We can do this and bring back the knowledge. That's what they're hinting at.
I think what I want to do for today is we're going to end it after this, because I think a 1.5 requires a little bit more. We could start that. We could do a 1.5 and go into WW later. For this is the reason I wanted to just go so far. I think I had it up to. Let me just come back and take a quick look. I think I only wanted to go to a 1.3. Or no, we did a 1.4. I wanted to stop there. Is because I think I want to make a point, and I want to do this shorter. My hope is that more people will watch this, because I want this to be short. If you look at what they're telling us, they're force feeding us their concept of right and wrong, and they're going to force feed us this through this Shariah. And I say us, that means all of humanity is expected to obey the Shariah. It's not just Islam. There's a difference. So you have Catholic law, you'll have Judaic law, you'll have laws for your community, and those are laws for the individuals within your community. All right, laws to obey in that community's area. But this law encompasses all of humanity, according to the followers of Islam, or the lovers of Sharia, I think is a better term. Because as you're learning, this Sharia actually supersedes everything. It's supposed to be the supreme law of everything, because it's supposed to be a law from God. That's what Muslims will tell you. There's tons of recordings on that. And we're already seeing that they've equated. I mean, they're violating, again, the law of non-contradiction. They violated. They have no concept of logic. And this is what they want. And they're starting out with this bitter pill that you have to take. I do want to end this in the next few minutes. I'd love to hear your last thoughts, guys.
Well, I mean, we've gone over the Quran in the last 10 months?
Yes.
And it clearly does not require any sort of thinking, because any person with a thinking brain, with some critical thinking, some reasoning, would see that the Quran is nothing but a joke written by a bunch of people who didn't even know Arabic. I mean, the inconsistencies of thoughts. There's no thought flow. Any book that you read has, the author has a flow of thoughts. The stories are consistent. It doesn't jump all over the place. And that's the Quran. It jumps all over the place. It gives you basically nothing. So I could understand why, this is happening. Even though Muslims tell me that Christians don't use logic. I beg to say, I haven't found an intelligent Muslim in my last 9 years dealing with them. And when I do, they're ex-Muslims.
Then you can't really call them. Go ahead, Lloyd.
But also they claim here that you need to get revelation, or you need to get the knowledge of good and evil from the prophets and from the books of Allah. But then they'll turn around and they'll tell you, and you've all experienced this, that the other books are all cancelled by the Quran. All the other prophets have been cancelled by Muhammad. Only Muhammad is relevant. Only the Quran is relevant. All the other books are wrong. So while they claim to have respect for previous revelations and prophets and books, they absolutely do not. So only what is within Islam is valid.
And for those, this is the thing I'll say to teenagers who are out there listening. No matter what you're told in school, you're told about the 5 pillars. We're reading Islamic sources. We're not making crap up. As you can see, we're going straight from their book. This is extremely important to understand. What you're taught in your public schools are lies about Islam. Your teachers may not know they're lies. They unfortunately are given a textbook, and your social studies teachers are generalists. This is their best source. They don't think about going in and finding the truth because they're not aware that these are lies. My suggestion, have them watch this because they're uninformed. That doesn't mean they're stupid. It means they just don't know. Tell them, come watch this show because we're going to give the facts out. We're going to give it to them. They might not like it. Well, again, we're using Islamic sources. We're not making this stuff up.
Well, they also cannot say anything that Muslims, at least, cannot say anything that would make Islam to be less than perfect. They cannot say anything or admit to anything that would make Muhammad to be less than perfect. They're obligated by Sharia law within the doctrine of lying to lie. They must do this. And if they don't, it is effectively blasphemy because then now they're blaspheming Allah, they're blaspheming Islam, they're blaspheming Muhammad. So they are forced to lie. It's just, and this simply, therefore, there is no logic. There is only winning. And this, because of their contact with the Neoplatonists and with Plato, and through them with the Sophists, unfortunately, they developed the idea of what they call hiyal, which is known as heuristic sophistry. So this is disputation. This is simply saying anything to win, clever argumentation to win. And it's not about finding truth. It's merely about disputing, undermining, and winning.
Thank you, everybody. I'm going to end it here. The idea, again, we'll come back. We'll do a 1.5 and we'll go on. My goal is to go through this line by line, and we're going to try and go through this. And the purpose, again, here is to show the facts. It's time for us to dispel the lies by using their materials so you can all see them. God bless everybody. Thank you.
All right. God bless you.
All right.
God bless. Good night.
All right.